So here we are. You wanna get into a Death Korps army. Well, I'm gonna help you out. We're gonna take a look at the main producer and some proxies, and we're gonna give some pros and cons, and we'll go from there. Enjoy the art. So, we're gonna start off, I thought this is a nice picture to put on here. We're gonna start off with the Games Workshop official Krieg. I personally do not think that they do Krieg justice. I think GW actually stomps on the Krieg image. That's just me. So let's go through some pros and cons. Pros, they're modern, they're plastic, so they're quite resistant. The Death Riders are honestly phenomenal. I think they look great. The Marshal's not a bad model. The Engineers are pretty cool. The Artillery's not bad. A little expensive, obviously. But compared to the other official source, this is actually cheaper. So let's get into the cons. The cons of the GW Krieg. Again, this is all my opinion. Firstly, price. Everything Games Workshop makes is overpriced. I've seen some prices in Australia. God bless yous. Horrible. Another con that I think most people... look, most people that have collected Krieg a long time, one of their biggest complaints is that it's not Forge World. And that one little phrase there should do justice to almost anybody that knows what I'm talking about. Don't lack the same style that the Forge World models had. Like, the Forge World models look like they were soldiers going off to a war, They looked gritty. There were a bunch of different poses. Everything looked really good. There's a lot of passion behind Forge World Krieg. I think GW Krieg really, in my opinion, is more trying to just cash in on the rising, I guess, fame, if you want to say that. I mean, the Death Korps has always been fairly popular, but I feel like it's gotten a resurgence. Unfortunately, a lot of it is cringe Redditors, but they're trying to cash in on the cringe Redditor. Again, just my opinion. Maybe you're happy to see modern Death Korps by GW, and that's fine too. Another big con right now is a lack of models. What you see on screen, is pretty much everything they have. There's 10 soldiers in the like a veteran kill team. There's like 10 guys in that, but that's like all you got. It's tough out there, GW bros. Will they make more models? I'm not sure. Does it seem like they want to? Probably not, honestly. I don't get the vibe that GW really cares about the Astra Militarum. I feel like it's doubling down on... Well, it cares about them, I guess, but it's doubling down on the Horus Heresy, Cadians, and Space Marines. That's like all they print. I mean, they know for a fact that people buy that stuff up, so... But yeah, that's the GW segment. I just want to get that out of the way quick. Moving on to the next one. So here's a nice image of the Forge World Kriegers. Okay, now you can already see that the quality is stupendous compared to GW. Now, it's resin. They are resin models, so the quality is not as good as plastic. But I mean, come on, guys. You can't deny this doesn't look like a great set. Forge World positives. Passion is behind them. A plethora of models await you. They look good. They're paintable. They're fun. I'm a big Forge World fan. Okay, if you can't tell, I very much like the Forge World Death Korps sets. I think the mask design is much better. It's a lot more akin to the older official art. Anyone that's looked at Siege of Raxon knows what I'm talking about. They just look better. I think. Realistically, I don't need to harp on that anymore. I think they just look superior. So, the cons are where Forge World's going to take a bit of a beating. Out of print, which already hurts. They're out of print. Incredibly expensive if you want to find a set. And even more expensive if you know someone that has an STL of it, because that's like the second coming if someone has an STL. If you do have an STL, just share it with people. Be a hero. That's all I can say. So realistically, the only cons of Forge World are price and availability. Good luck finding a cheap Forge World set. I would suggest to you that perhaps you go to a flea market or something. People are always giving away models at flea markets. At least the 5 times I've gone to a flea market, I've seen models there ranging from Space Marines, Cadians. I think I've seen Gene Stealers at one once. Not always painted the best, so you might have to do some saving. But yeah, that's my Forge World take. I don't want to say too much because I don't want people to get all excited and then go hunting for him just to be disappointed. But Forge World is an easy S. Okay, moving on. Alright, so next up, we're jumping into the world of Proxies. This is the Red Maker's Death Division. So, pros, it's a proxy. Some people would consider that a con, some would consider it a pro. Cheaper than GW. Quality's not too bad. Unfortunately, the proxies are going to take a tiny beating in the cons department. So first off, the look might turn some people off. I'm going to pull up some images here to show you what I mean. So as you can see, the quality's not bad. This is a nice painted set, but I think it's apparent to anybody, at least if you've been in this for a while, like, the Red Maker's Death Division probably looks the least like the Death Korps. Here's a plain image of them. As you can see, it just doesn't really fit, like, the actual look of the Death Korps. That's not a bad thing. Like, this is a very obvious proxy. The most affordable is the most obvious, you know what I'm saying? That's not to say they're bad, for the record. They're cheap. They're probably the best one to fill out your ranks. Like, if you just have a table setup going, and you're like 3 feet away, you ain't even gonna know. Okay, so we're here on the official Red Maker's site. This is the kill squad. So let's take a look. Okay. So here's an up close view of them. To the completionists out there, there's no Imperial signal. I'm sorry, symbol. No Imperial symbol. It's just a strap. It looks like a strap. So here's where it might turn some people off, like the completionists. This might turn them off a little bit. The breathing apparatus is more metallic. So the astute among you, or the ones that have been in the game for a while, know that the Red Makers have like bionic legs. That might really kill the vibe for some people. As you can see, you'd have to do a little working to get those off. So you might have to do some put some bandages on or something. Like, I mean, but if you're a guy that doesn't like kit bashing and all, this might bother you, so maybe you'd want to skip these. I think the Death Division overall is about a B tier for proxies for the core. Alright, so overall, the Red Maker's Death Division, the biggest pro, incredibly affordable. This is probably your cheapest and best bet to get a Death Korps army quick. I think the biggest con of them is probably the most obvious proxy of the bunch. You can very much tell that this is not the Death Korps. That doesn't bother some people. Some people might bother. I just think that's worth noting. This is probably the most obvious. Okay, next up, everybody, we have the Station Forge Grimguard. So overall, I think this is a good pick. There's a lot of pros that outweigh the cons. First, big pro, highly affordable, incredibly affordable. The look is great. The mask could be better, but other than that, they're pretty good. Easily kit bashable, incredibly versatile. Let me just show you what I mean. So here we have proxies of a proxy, which is pretty cool, I suppose, to some people. They've got Ogrins. Station Forge is very recommended. I very much like Station Forge. I think the Grimguard is phenomenal when painted. It's got aerial troops, it's got snipers. If you like want to run a straight up Krieg proxy and like just homebrew something crazy, this is probably what you want to go with. Incredibly affordable, I might add, if you're taking a look here. Incredibly affordable. So, model review. I started with a tankette this time. Grimguard, super versatile. They have everything on their site. Tanks, artillery, infantry. I think their already looks better than the official GW already, personally. It looks more World War I-esque. I think the Grimguard really is probably the most versatile of the proxies. Again, the infantry, tons of weapons, easy to homebrew, very kit bashable. This is probably the most versatile of all the proxies, but I still don't think it's the best out of all of them. We're getting there. And then I think the piece de resistance is they sell trench. Well, they sell trench parts. You know, what good Grimdark army doesn't have a trench? Okay, so looking at a painted one here, let's go over the cons. No breathing apparatus. Some people might not like that. Again, if you're trying... Some people are like really purist when it comes to proxying, and the Grimguard don't really have a breathing apparatus, which is fine to me. I really don't care. I think a lot of proxies are good for just being the background guys, not your main guys on display. I think the only other obvious proxy is maybe you see them a little cartoony. If you go on their website, like they have like Frost Guard and like Roman versions of them and all, and like Greeks. So you can make the argument they're cartoony, but you don't have to buy them. But I have seen people genuinely like harp on the Grimguard because they think they're a really cartoony proxy. I don't think that's bad. I think the Grimguard legitimately only has that one con. The mask might not be super Kriegish, you know, not super World War I-esque. I don't think that's a big deal. Alright, moving on to our next proxy. Alright, so this is the Valour Corps by the Maker's Cult. As you can see from this image alone, they look pretty good. This is probably the second best proxy on our list here. I would recommend the Valour Corps. I think the models are good scale, they're not cartoony. The only thing that might bother some people, well, we'll get into that when we get to the cons section. Genuinely would recommend the Valour Corps. Would recommend. Alright, so as you can see, they also have armor, which is a big pro, I think. Just like the Grimguard, you'll be able to actually get a full army with the Valour Corps, which is good, which again puts them over Red Makers. Here's a little picture of the squad. Realistically, again, up close, they don't look like the Death Korps official. But that shouldn't stop you from having them in the line. They're perfect fillers. Again, Valour Corps is just straight up good. There's not really... I mean, the only cons I could put out, I guess, the V might turn some people off, I guess. If you're a perfectionist, I guess that would bother you. The real genuine con of the Valour Corps is that the Maker's Cult store is disabled. So you'll have to go out of your way to get some STLs, or just buy some models. Perhaps their Patreon. I'm pretty sure, I'm sure that still has their models. But yeah, you'll have to download some STL files from somebody. But if that's the biggest con, that's not too bad. This hurts. Seeing this, that's not very good. So as you can see, disabled. So they've went the way of the dodo, at least for now. I'm sure they'll be back eventually. I would recommend finding some STL files online, maybe buying them off somebody. Proxies are usually sold pretty cheap, so a Valour Corps force is not out of the realm of possibility and should not hurt the wallet too much. That's probably your biggest con with the Valour Corps. Alright, moving right along here. My favorite proxy is coming up. Get hype! Next up, we have Forge World again. No, I'm kidding. This is actually Tiny Legend, but... Look, I saved Tiny Legend. I saved them for last because I think they're the best you can get. This is probably the best proxy. This is better than GW. Okay, let's just be real. This is better than GW. Second only to Forge World. I mean, they look great. Everything right from the helmet to the boots it just screams Death Korps. I would recommend Tiny Legend to anybody who's serious. I think they're good for the perfectionists. Everything on them, too, is a part. The breathing apparatus itself is something you can glue on. If you don't want your guys to have a breathing apparatus, you don't gotta have it. You want to put it on somebody else? You can. The helmets. You can get different helmets. The backpacks. There's a bunch of different backpacks. There's weapon variants. It's the way to go. This is like the definitive Death Korps experience. GW... end it all, hire this man. Alright, so let's talk about the cons. Price, they're like just behind GW, they're a little pricey. However, you do not have to buy the physical models. You can buy digital files and print them yourself. for way cheaper. I think that's the definitive way to go. I think that's smarter. That all being said, the models themselves are still more affordable than GW for what you get. The quality of said models is beautiful. They come with instructions and all. I mean, you really can't go wrong. I mean, the quality on these little images here I'm showing, they're beautiful. This is peak. This is peak, as the kids would say. Please give Tiny Legends a try. If you didn't see Tiny Legends and I started the video and called this Forge World, you wouldn't know the fucking difference. So here we are at the official, I'm gonna leave a timestamp for you if you didn't want to sit through all of this, obviously. Let's just get right into it. So, we have the official Games Workshop Death Korps. I think it's a B tier. I'm being so genuine. I think it is a B tier. I think the Proxies actually beat the shit out of GW. Next up, we've got the Death Division. Probably the weakest proxy, losing to GW. Next up, we have the Grimguard. I think they're in A. The Grimguard is, like I said, very versatile. Next up, we have Forge World Krieg, S tier. This is the pinnacle of Death Korps models. Valour Corps, that's an A. And then we have the Tiny Legends Trench Warfare. Now look, I don't want to commit blasphemy and say that Trench Warfare is better than Forge World. But overall with the video and what we're talking about here, I think it's only fair to put them above only because it's more accessible. If you want to start a Death Korps army and maybe you have like $100 to spend, don't give GW $100 for 20 models. Okay? So that's my ranking. Obviously you can disagree with it. I thought this was a little different for once, more of a... I don't know, I haven't really done an in-depth video like this before. I'm still learning the ropes. I've mostly been dropping meme videos. But yeah, that's my ranking on the Krieg and the Krieg proxies and how to get into the army. Thank you.